Moise continued to study in the primary school, the mainstream primary school, until year 5. And if I'm not wrong, he would be around 12 or 13 years old. So in year 5, he was with a teacher who basically wasn't able to manage Moise's behaviors, like the lying down, because academically I think things had gotten stressful for Moise, and probably he wasn't able to cope. And socially, I mean, as well, he as I'd mentioned earlier, he was basically just hanging around children, not really interacting with them. So this particular teacher, he just couldn't handle Moise's behaviors, and Usman and I received a message from him saying that he wanted, or the school was requesting Moise to actually not to come to school anymore. That came as a really rude sort of shock. It really hurt, actually. It's very hurtful to hear that, your child who spent 4 or 5 years in an institution where you think that, okay, I mean, they're not maybe doing academically well, but at least, they seem to enjoy going there. It's part of their routine. You get the feeling that there is maybe not inclusion at its best, but at least he was with mainstream children, right? And then one day you get this call and you're told that don't send your child to school anymore. And yeah, it really, really hurt. I couldn't share the news with Mo. I just made up a story, and I said that we just felt that the school was not adequate for him anymore, and that we were looking for another school. I just couldn't tell him that, you are not wanted anymore, because that's exactly how I felt. Parallel to this, I had started my master's in art therapy from La Salle College of the Arts. Just to roll back a little bit, I went into that master's because I had seen the power of art making, and how during my phase of anxiety, of extreme anxiety, how I had used art making as a way of unloading my stress or my feelings into artistic expression. And in fact, it was my psychiatrist or who suggested I look into this program. She said, I just feel that this is something that's going to be a good fit for you. So I went for an introductory workshop. It was an introductory workshop on art therapy. And just attending that workshop made it very clear to me that, yes, this is what I wanted to do. Prior to this master's, around the time that Mikhail was born, I had also done a diploma in specific learning difficulties. The thing is that although obviously looking after 3 kids kept me very busy, but I had help at home. I had helpers at home who helped me with the kids. And of course, Moise's therapy schedule, with time, it became less and less. And I think I needed to do something for myself and to kind of, for mental stimulation. I had a background in art. I graduated from an art college. So while I was doing remedial teaching with children with dyslexia as an educational therapist, I saw the creative side and the expressive side in those children who were struggling to otherwise read and write. And I remember very clearly feeling or having this urge to actually draw with them or paint with them or have them express themselves emotionally. So when I went for this workshop to La Salle, art therapy seemed to bring both the art making side and the therapy side both of the things that I was kind of drawn to and heavily involved in, it brought that together. And that's how I ended up doing the master's. Now, the interesting thing is that we, within our cohort at La Salle, we used to have these group therapy sessions. And I remember this one occasion where, I mean, of course, I used to share about Moise and my sort of obsession with him being in mainstream and fighting for him and, all the emotions and how Moise was, we were, so he was a priority and we were so driven to, give him the best and so on and so forth. But I suppose I must have been sharing about this thing with the mainstream, that he must go to mainstream school. And so one of my classmates, she just stopped me for a second and she just said, I keep on hearing you say that you want this for your son and you want that for your son. Have you ever asked him what he wants? At that moment, it was almost like something had hit me. And I'm like, no, I've never asked him really. It's always been about what I want for him. And I went home and I asked Mo. And you know what he said? He said to me, you know what? They don't really understand me in the school. This is the mainstream school that he was going to. They don't really understand my challenges. And I was like, okay, well, how come we hadn't had this conversation before? I guess I was asking myself that question. And that's when I realized, and that's when I decided that I had to give a special school a try. Like I said before, I had no choice. There was no integrated system or school, a truly inclusive school in Singapore at that moment. There were very clear lines between a special school and a mainstream school, and the mainstream schools that claimed to take in children with different abilities, frankly, they didn't have the resources to support them. So at the end of the day, there were, just a handful of schools that were specialized. And so over the next few years, Moise went, I think he changed 3 schools, from one special school to the next. And he was a misfit in all of those schools because, either those schools were for kids who could do academics, or it was those the kids who were either non-verbal or challenged in ways that they were not Moise just did not fit the profile. So he was hanging somewhere in the middle and hopped from one school to the next.